back, everybody. Thought it was a really great morning. A lot of great information was shared, really great engagement from you all, great networking, great information sharing. So I anticipate, even though it's after lunch and your stomachs are full, that we're still going to have a great afternoon. Absolutely. All right. Well, this session is a Train the Trainer session. And it's going to be Train the Trainer on the module that we'll actually do together first thing in the morning tomorrow. So, what we do today is I'm going to kind of walk you through how I deliver this module, and then tomorrow we actually get to see it in action together. Okay, does that help make sense? And the reason this module is a little bit unusual than your other modules, like the one I did this morning for Troop and Family Support, that was a lot of me following an actual lesson plan where I was delivering information for you and generating discussion among you all. Well, this module is actually brainstorming and networking, and that's it. Everything that we learn and share is because you all have done that, not because I'm delivering information, but because I'm helping to keep the discussion going as the facilitator, and you all are sharing ideas. So I'm not an instructor for this module, I am actually a facilitator, and we'll kind of get into what the nuances and differences are. So getting Americanism in children and youth active in your communities is where we take opportunity, and it's wonderful when there's a large group like this, to be able to share what works in your post, what works in your district, some different and unique ideas for anything Americanism. Can be youth programs, can be flag education, could be citizenship and naturalization, could be anything. So you saw during lunch that we laid out a training outline. Don't let it intimidate you, because I know it looks like an awful lot of information, but it's not called a lesson plan for a reason. Again, it's not because you're going to do a lesson plan, but it's because this is everything that I and my staff have sat down and brainstormed that we feel is important for every program under Americanism at the national level. We've also added some cool ideas to it that we have gained when we've gone out and done just this exact module. And you'll find New York, North Carolina, there's lots of different departments as we go through this in its entirety tomorrow morning that have given us great tips. Now there's always the great tried and true stuff, and that's not a problem, that's great to share that. But what we're trying to generate is some unique and different ideas that maybe you do for your boys' state that other programs don't do, or that you do in your department for oratorical that maybe other departments don't do. So that's kind of the purpose of this module. But for this afternoon's purposes, it's a Train the Trainer. So I'm going to teach you or show you how I do my delivery, and then tomorrow morning we'll actually do the module itself. Okay, that was yours? All right, thank you. Okay. Obviously, I'm not a techie. Do you have to turn it on? Oh, yeah, you have to turn it on. I know that much. I know that much, so that's good. I know on-off buttons, that's about it, too. Okay. I already covered that. This module is not your traditional instruction. It's actually about facilitation. It's not about lecturing. It's about brainstorming and keeping the discussion going when you're the trainer or the facilitator. It's designed to generate brainstorming, best practices, lessons learned. We talked about, obviously, you can share about what's pretty common among departments and programs, but we're really trying to draw out what's unique and different, so that other posts and other districts and other departments may want to go back and implement that on their own. Group enthusiasm is going to be very, very important when you're facilitating this module to a group. If you have bumps on a log, it's going to be really, really challenging. Boo, that's right. And I'm thankful to say I've done this module lots of times, lots of departments, and I have never, ever had a session that I haven't walked away really pleased with, because everybody wants to share their ideas and share what they're doing in their posts and departments and districts. I've never had bumps on a log. So it's been a very, very successful module for brainstorming. As a facilitator who's going to facilitate this module, because it is brainstorming, you have to have the ability to engage others. Sometimes, as you know, people can be a bit shy or a little bit reserved, and you just have to kind of start trying to engage people and get them to start talking. And then usually, once you break the ice, so to speak, usually this thing will take off and have a life of its own. And then that's when you as a facilitator have to learn how to be able to help manage and control the conversations so it's not just going wild, but it's a controlled type of environment where everybody can hear the ideas that are being brought forth. So there's no scripted lesson plan. As I just told you, that's not called a lesson plan for a reason. It's called a training outline. So that's a guide, but it is definitely not a lesson plan that you have to deliver in its entirety. Okay? If you're somebody who prefers to deliver structured lectures, you're not somebody who wants to try and facilitate a free flow of discussion, this isn't the module for you to stand up here and do what I'm doing. And that's fine. That's not a problem. Not everybody likes to be a facilitator. Some people like to know exactly what they're going to say and know what they're going to follow and know it's going to be delivered. That's fine. But if you're somebody like me who really likes to get discussion going, you're really going to enjoy facilitating this type of module. So, the responsibilities of a facilitator. And keep in mind, there's a difference between facilitator and instructor. So facilitator creates a supportive environment. So tries to help keep the discussion going, engage people. Focuses the group energies and discussions. So if we kind of get off on a tangent, the facilitator is the one who needs to try and bring it back to topic so that we can continue on with the goals and purposes of the module, which is brainstorming and sharing information. Am I doing that?
No, that's next there.
Okay. A facilitator helps a group to identify or clarify ideas or best practices. Pretty obvious. A facilitator will also have in their back pocket additional methods and procedures. So if in fact, I have some ideas that I had never heard before from other departments, and so I have those in my script, in my training outline, so that we can talk about those. Something unique, something different, something that I don't hear coming from this group that I am able to share and provide as seeds to plant for you all. Facilitator helps to find win-win situations, and that's really the goal. Periodically summarizes so as to be able to validate and clarify the discussion, and that's really important as a facilitator. And then the facilitator provides everybody an opportunity to participate. Now, not everybody wants to participate, and that's okay, but everybody who does want to, the facilitator does their very best to try and make sure that there's time and opportunity for those who do have something to say it. And there's the difference between training and facilitation. Again, one's very structured, one is more of a control type thing. Training is where you're going to receive one-way information, but facilitation is where everybody exchanges information. It's going back and forth, me to you, you to me, back and forth across the aisle, as opposed to just me delivering. The focus is upon learning objectives when there's training, but in facilitation, it's about process improvement. And that's key. It's about process improvement. What you're doing now, I'm sure your programs are awesome, but we always want to look to do better, more efficient, more enhanced. And that's what facilitation is about, is to try and find that process improvement that maybe you want to grab a hold of and incorporate into one of your programs. In training, you can use AV, not a problem. In facilitation, not so much AV, and you'll see tomorrow morning when we actually do this module, it's all going to be about discussion. There's no PowerPoint. There's nothing like that. It is more about exchanging what tools and resources you know you have available that you may be able to share with others that they can incorporate. The instructor in training is the one who provides the information, but participants in facilitation elicit the information sharing. So I don't walk in tomorrow morning with all the answers. I'm looking to glean some of the answers and information from you to add to my training plan, to carry on to other departments when I go forth and do this again, Just like when you go back home, and maybe you do this within your post and district, that's going to be an opportunity for you to be able to do the exact same thing. This will electronically be provided in the Dropbox, this training outline, and it is very much yours to modify how you want. You can delete anything out of there you want. You can add anything you want. This is going to be yours to do what you want. So when you go and you do this module to help do all this brainstorming, it's yours. So there's nothing proprietary about it. You do what you want. And the instructor will establish the meeting structure and the content when they're an instructor, while a facilitator just manages the meeting and the structure, not the content. Okay? So we know what topic we want to talk about, but as far as the details, the content, that's going to come from you all. So is that clear how training very much differs from facilitation? Okay? Any questions so far? Still got those full tummies, right? Physical environment is always very important, whether it's training or facilitation. So there's always some general rules, as we know. The room setup for this particular module, when we're brainstorming, ideally, a U shape is best, because everybody can see everybody else. That's not always possible, especially with a group of this size, and that's okay. That doesn't make it a showstopper. That's just the ideal. Comfortable temperature and lighting, that goes for any meeting, no matter what it is. Training, any type of information sharing, you want your participants to be comfortable. AV needs, do think about AV. Sometimes if you're in a large room like this, if I didn't have a microphone on and be amplified, you may not be able to hear me, the people in the back, which means that they aren't going to be very engaged then. Now personally, I don't think I would have that problem without the microphone, but some facilitators may not be able to be heard at the back of the room. So always think about that in advance so you can arrange any microphones or any type of AV equipment if, in fact, you decide to incorporate any videos or something like that. Morning seems to work best, in my experience, when it comes to having these brainstorming sessions, because it's got to be a two-way exchange, back and forth, across the aisle. Usually when you're fresh first thing in the morning, like you will be tomorrow when we do this, that's ideal. But again, it's not a showstopper. I've done it after lunch. I've done it at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And again, when I've done this module and facilitated it, it's always been very, very successful. But I find morning is optimal. Okay? So what you want to do then is once you feel you've got the physical set up, the room all set up, and you've got the time scheduled, and you feel like you're good to go, then you want to think about providing orientation and setting expectations, including introductions before you jump into your brainstorming facilitation is really, really important. Now, we did introductions this morning. You know who I am. I know who a lot of you are. But if you have a group that's small enough, or even large enough sometimes, name tags are very helpful so that you all, as you're talking back and forth across the aisle there, can get to know each other. You definitely want to define the purpose of the module, like I just did for you. The purpose of the module is to brainstorm and share ideas. The purpose is not for you to sit there and listen to me. The purpose is for us to share information back and forth. So you want to make sure you set that expectation. You want to announce the scheduled length of the meeting. Okay? So in the morning, what you'll hear is, we're scheduled for 2 hours, and as long as we're sharing ideas, we'll probably be able to fill up that entire 2 hours. Okay? Something along those lines, so they kind of know what the expectation is. Establish ground rules. You heard me do that first thing this morning. Cell phones off, there's no breaks, but please feel free to exit. No sidebar discussions. Please take your discussions outside. All those usual ground rules that you always do whenever you're going to engage in some training. Do pulse checks of the group without. Does anybody know what a pulse check is? There you go, seeing how they're doing. Are there any questions? That's a pulse check. How's everyone doing out there? That's a pulse check. Do we need to stand up and stretch for a minute before we go on? That's a pulse check. That kind of thing. to make sure everybody is still comfortable and engaged, and you're getting the temperature of how the room is running. You're kind of feeling how everybody's doing. And then you want to role model the desired behavior, and you have to be aware of your own biases. And what that means is if it's in fact something that maybe somebody brings up that I personally don't agree with or think that's not a good idea, it may be a good idea to somebody else just because I personally don't think so. So as a facilitator, you have to check your biases and make sure that you're not giving a bias that you don't intend, okay? And always, 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 whenever we do training, just like you've seen from David and from I, and I'm sure you will from Paul, when you're all done, you want to give everybody an attaboy, job well done, really appreciate your engagement, that type of thing, okay? Just kind of some general tips when you want to be an instructor or a facilitator. There's the ground rules. We already talked about that. And you know, when we're doing this brainstorming session or in any training scenario, you know, it's okay to debate each other. You know, disagreement isn't always a bad thing as long as it's respectful and it's presented in a manner that is respectful to the others. Not everybody's always going to agree. So as long as it's professional. This brainstorming session that we'll be doing in the morning, it's not meant to be a bash session, okay? It's not meant to bash your departments, your commanders, national headquarters. The idea is to be able to share information. And sometimes as a facilitator, you have to really watch that, because sometimes it can turn into a complaint session as opposed to an idea sharing session. So really, you got to keep a strong hold on that as a facilitator. When you're doing the type of module that we'll do in the morning and that we'll demonstrate here in just a little while, it's really important to keep control of people speaking one at a time. Otherwise, you're going to have people speaking over each other. People aren't going to hear the ideas that are being brought forth. And that can be challenging sometimes for a facilitator. And we'll kind of go through that, how you can grab a hold and get control and make sure that it's just one at a time. You want to set aside rank and status, okay? So when it comes to information sharing, you know what they say, no idea is a dumb idea. Just because you may not agree with it doesn't mean somebody across the room doesn't think it's a great thing that's going to work back in their post. So set aside rank. Set aside the fact that there's a red cap or a white cap or whatever it may be in the room. The focus, the expectation is that we're going to share ideas. That's what you want to focus on. No one dominates, and you have to respect mic time. This is where you really have to engage as a facilitator. And it can be a challenge sometimes, because when you get a free flow discussion and ideas going, there's some people who, they are just so full of information and energy, sometimes you have to kind of rein them back a little. And we'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a little while. But if you're somebody who doesn't like to have to take that kind of control, then this isn't the type of module that you want to be a facilitator for. And if somebody does ask you to wrap up your thought, if the facilitator says, okay, we've got a question back here, could you finish up? And I'm going to pick on you all in the front row this afternoon, so it's nothing personal. You know, we need to finish up, we got a comment back here, so go ahead and finish up your thought. If you're somebody who's not comfortable doing that, then you don't want to facilitate this module, okay? And it's not meant to minimize what anybody has to say. It's meant to try to maximize the ideas that everybody wants to share in just a short, finite amount of time. So it's not meant to be disrespectful. We talked about no such thing as a bad idea. We talked about cell phones. In this module, I always like to announce up front, I don't take breaks in this module no matter where I'm at, no matter what department it may be. The first time I did this module and we got our brainstorming going and we were really sharing ideas, and I thought, you know what, we've been at it for an hour, we should take a break. That really just interrupted the synergy and the energy we had going. So when we came back, it was hard to get back in gear to get it going again. And to be honest, we never got back up to the level we were when we called the break. So that's where I just announced no breaks during the next 2 hours while the discussions are going, but please feel free to slip out if you need to. But let's keep our energy and enthusiasm and idea sharing going. okay? And this really goes for instructors and facilitators, but you want to listen intently to what's being said out there, especially in this module, because there's so many ideas that are going to come forth that you may not have heard before. So you want to listen intently. You want to make eye contact with whoever is speaking so that they know that they're being heard and understood. You want to speak in a lively tone. There's nothing worse than having a monotone instructor or facilitator at the front of the room, especially after lunch at this hour. That could really lull you to sleep, and that's definitely not what you want. You want to keep an inviting posture, and that goes for any time you're interacting with people. You wouldn't want me standing up here like this, would you? Because what does that tell you? I'm cold? You're right. Good catch, whoever that was.
You're not open to ideas.
There you go. Not open to ideas, or maybe I'm bored with what is being said, or I'm just not into it. That just sends a really wrong message. So you want to make sure you have an open, inviting posture. Don't hide behind the podium, especially for this module, because you really don't have to follow notes, and you'll see that in the morning. I'll be referring to notes once in a while, so I'll have to step behind the podium, see where I'm at, but don't hide behind the podium. And any good instructor or facilitator will try not to do that, okay? Refrain from evaluating what is being said. So in other words, I don't want to say that was a bad idea, that was a good idea. Nah, that was all right. Don't evaluate it, just let the ideas flow. You do want to summarize, though, as a facilitator. You want to hit the key points to make sure it gets re-emphasized, everybody has heard it and understood it, and whether they want to grab it from there or they want to dismiss it from there is certainly the participant's prerogative. But as the facilitator, you do want to try to be able to summarize the key points that you hope your audience is going to grab a hold of. Keep focused, on topic, and under control. That's what a facilitator does, okay? It can get away from you sometimes, but it's about knowing how to bring it all back. Nurture full participation from the group. And and that's really important. You want to do a couple things. You want to try and open up and invite participation. Not everybody is going to raise their hand all the time. Kind of look to see and scan your audience. Is there somebody who just looks like they have something to say, or somebody who's just kind of, they're not one of these? Keep an eye out as a facilitator and seize that opportunity to engage them. Because if you do that the first time with somebody who's a little bit shy about it, that really reinforces the fact that they can do it again later when they have something to say. So watch for that kind of thing. Look for boredom or discontent as a facilitator. That can tell you an awful lot, too, that maybe you either need to move on to a different topic or it's just not gelling. So you need to figure out how to get the group energized and engaged. And again, thankfully, haven't had that problem. I've never seen discontent or boredom. As a matter of fact, there's many times 2 hours just wasn't enough. We needed more time to be able to continue to brainstorm. Show encouragement. Nod, smile, affirm. Say, that's a great idea, those kind of things, so that whoever's making the comment knows that their message was received. And then support participation. That's great, wonderful, that's perfect, that's exactly what we needed to hear, something like that, okay? Now, as a facilitator, you do run into your challenges, and as an instructor, you can too, okay? And with this module, really what it does is it takes practice, practice, practice. I look back now at the first time I did this module a few years ago, and I think, oh my gosh, I could have done things so much better. But it's time and experience and repetition that'll help you be a great facilitator for this type of module. But you are going to run into your challenges from that side, okay? And so let's talk this afternoon a little bit about some of those challenges that we can run into. They're not problems, it's just challenges, okay? Well, as you see, one of the first challenges that we can run into is the windbag or the steamroller, okay? And I actually took this, the source I got this from was from Developing Facilitative Leadership, adapted from Pickett Institute curriculum. And then I also got it from Dealing with Disruptive Participants, okay? So this is stuff that's out there. This isn't stuff Jill made up. This is just stuff Jill compiled from those who are subject matter experts and how to manage and facilitate a group. So the windbag or the steamroller is a dominator, basically, is what that type of challenge is. Those individuals tend to speak first and frequently. They use nonverbals, use nonverbals when you have somebody who's a dominator, okay? So I'm going to pick on you, okay? Let's say your hand was up first, you're just going on, you're dominating the conversation. I know somebody else over there has something to say. So what I'm going to try and do is I'll go ahead and break my eye contact and kind of start moving away, okay? And say, Skippy, thank you for your contributions. Let's go over here and see what Joe has to say. So by breaking the eye contact, but acknowledging the fact that you've heard the message, thank you very much, time is up, is basically what you've done. You've politely disengaged from the dominator, okay? So in other words, hopefully they'll get the hint. Not trying to shut them down, but you definitely want them to know that there's other people out there too. What's that? You hear a lot of that too. And if that were the case, and I just thought as the facilitator, no, we just don't have the time, what I would do is, I know you have one more thing to say. How about we get together after we're done, and we'll go ahead and let's hear what other people have to say. Okay? Not disrespectful, not impolite. Didn't shut her down either. I'm giving her opportunity later. It's not like I'm telling her, I don't want to hear what you have to say. We're just going to put it in the parking lot and save it for later. Okay? What's that? No? Okay. Then we have the other end of the spectrum, the mummy. Somebody who's really quiet. Maybe they're shy. They don't like to freely participate in discussions. And I don't like putting people on the spot that are shy. But sometimes with just a little encouragement, you can get the shy person to really engage, okay? So maybe what I'll do is I'll kind of test the waters. And I'll say, what do you think of that idea we just talked about? And he'll either go ahead and say,
I don't think about it at all.
Okay, there you go. Got my answer, didn't I? He might either say something like, I don't know, or that sounds good, just something kind of generic that tells me, you know what, he's not somebody who's ready to speak up yet. Or if he really has a thought, he'll let me know. Okay? So that's the way you can kind of engage the mummy. Give them an opportunity, but don't put them on the spot. Open the door a little bit, and if they want to walk through it, they'll open the door wide open. And sometimes that's all it takes. It's just a little bit of encouragement, and they're engaged. Any questions on these two? And again, know that these terms are tongue-in-cheek, okay? It's meant to give you a little laugh and a little giggle. I think that's why those sources have done that. The rambler. The rambler is somebody who's made their point, but they continue to belabor it and go on and on and on and repeat themselves, okay? Or sometimes they can ramble, but they've gotten way off track from really where you intended to go. And they're going down a different path and missing the point or repeating. So what you want to be able to do is to say, to get the rambler back on track, either A, wait till they take a breath. Timing is everything. And just like we have up there, when they take a breath, Skippy, thank you so much for that. We're going to get back to the agenda now. Thank you so much for sharing your ideas. Okay? And then step away so that they get the idea that that's enough. It's the nonverbals. It's the polite engagement. Or if there's somebody who never takes a breath, you may have to just kind of interrupt them and go, Okay, Skippy, we've got very limited amount of time. If you can just finish up in about 20, 25 words, and then we need to move on. And they need to know then, they have to get to the point, because you're shutting them off in a few words and you're moving on. Okay? Does that make sense? The homesteader. They're reluctant to budge or consider alternative views. And we've all run into those, even in daily life, not even just in training situations. So you want to apply hints on what the rest of the group is thinking. Okay? So let's just say that you have a really great idea and it works at your post and it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, but somebody who lives on the East Coast, that's just not going to work for them. Yes, it will. I have a great example. Department of Wyoming, they have a youth program in their department, which is rodeo. They are very engaged in rodeos in Wyoming, and rightfully so. But is something like that going to work in the Department of New York, Department of New Jersey, Department of Maine? Probably not. But that person is just convinced that every department should be doing rodeos. Okay? So the best way to try and disengage from that is just like we have up there. Well, that may not work for everyone. I'm glad to hear that works so well in your department. Keep that up. That is a wonderful program that your department, it sounds like, really needs and your communities are engaged in. But it may not work for everyone. So let's go ahead and see if we have some other ideas from other people in the room. See how I disengaged? Acknowledged and validated, gave my eye contact, walked up, said thank you so much, but let's hear from others, and I kind of backed away. Okay? Very nice, very polite, but she got the idea that rodeo isn't going to work for everybody. Okay? Okay, Bill back there thinks rodeo will work for everybody.
Why wouldn't it?
That's everybody with Texas hats on, I know. What's that?
You get to know what a horse looks like.
Okay, the curveball pitcher. That's somebody who always likes to throw you some curveballs or tries to derail things by saying, well, what if? Well, what if this happens? What if that happens? To disengage, it's kind of the same as we just went through. Posts and communities are different. Not every idea is going to work for everybody in every post, department, or across the nation. Perhaps you can modify some of these ideas. Just because it won't work for your post doesn't mean you can't take it and modify it. Okay? Didn't shut them down, but you're trying to nicely tell them, still listen. Maybe you can take it and modify it. Don't get derailed. Think about it. Okay? Think how you can make it your own. And then there's the buzz killer, the naysayer. No matter what, they always throw out these, it's not going to work. And here's why it's not going to work. Okay? They don't offer any alternatives. They just step up and say, that's not going to work. Well, the idea then is to disengage and say, well, remember, this is a brainstorming session, so there's no bad ideas. May not work for you and for your department, but it may work for the department over here. So that's why we're going to go ahead and continue to share some more ideas. But thank you very much. Okay? Everything's on the table. That's what you want to try and convey. Everything's on the table. So, that's kind of an overview, and I showed you some examples of how I handle some of these people. Again, I don't want to call them problems or troublesome, even though that's what the title said, because that's really not it. It's just a matter of personalities. It's a matter of wanting to share an excitement and enthusiasm. That's why so many people can sometimes be a dominator. It's not that they're meant to be malicious or anything like that, but as a facilitator, you have to grab a hold of those different types of personalities and interactions, do it politely, respectfully, but keep the training and the brainstorming on track. So do you have any questions about those scenarios or those type of participants that we just went through? Good. So now for the rest, yes, sir?
I think you're
like how to get a membership, you should know who's there. You know,
Perfect.
if you know you're going to have 4 or 5 membership chairs there, you know they're going to have more knowledge about things than brand new ones. So you need to be able to analyze these people beforehand as a facilitator, so you can sort of get them, the ones that know, share with those that don't know, and have those that don't know ask the appropriate questions from those who do know.
Yep.
And I think that will help a lot. And also, if you have the time, where to put these people in the
Yep.
room. So
Perfect.
I found that to be helpful when doing facilitations. So.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct.
Right.
Absolutely correct. And I did that last night at the meet and greet. When I was talking to the 2 department adjutants, I said, you know, I know you all process a lot of TFAs. Please, tomorrow morning when we talk about TFA, please stand up, speak up. Let us know from a department perspective. And if you notice, both of the adjutants did today. I said something to a few of the investigators last night. I said, you have the field experience. Please speak up. Add to what we have to say in the morning. So you're absolutely correct. Getting to know who you have in the audience, who your subject matter experts on, who you can turn to try and draw out more information or more ideas. So very good point. Thank you. Okay. So that's kind of the first part of this train the trainer I wanted to go through. Just some very generic approaches that you can use as an instructor, as a facilitator in daily life. I mean, there's lots of times I've used this with my insurance agent because he's a yacker. He loves to jabber. You know, I've used some of these techniques on him to try and disengage politely. So what I'd like to do now, if there's no questions about the facilitation principles we just went over. Okay, good. I'd now like to kind of get into our training outline that I gave you and kind of take it piece by piece by piece to show you or tell you how I facilitate it. So what my intention is we're going to look at it, administering it as a module facilitator, which is what I'm going to do. And what I'm going to do is when I'm facilitating this module, I'm going to go into character. I'm going to tell you, okay, I'm the facilitator now. So you can see and I can demonstrate how I do it. And then I'll step out of character so that we can stop and discuss how I did it, how you may want to do it, some ideas that you may have. You're also going to get an idea of what it's going to be like to be a participant before we actually do the module in the morning. Okay, so this is going to be kind of a test run this afternoon. So I can demonstrate, you can see, and you can kind of get an idea of both perspectives. Does that sound good? Does that sound good? Yes. All right. So let's open up our lesson plan that I left you. I need to open up my lesson plan. And we are actually done with the PowerPoint. Now we'll be doing a couple videos later, but okay. And again, my timer is set, so I'm calling no penalties, no fines, okay? All right, the very first part of the lesson plan. It's informational for you as the facilitator. And again, I shouldn't call it a lesson plan, training outline. It's informational for you, what the title is, what the purpose or the description is, the type of class, the type of setup you may want, what type of equipment do you need, how much time is optimal, what kind of AV media do you want to incorporate, if anything, what's optional, what you feel is required. It's for you to help get set up like we talked about in the very beginning. Okay? So does anybody have any questions on that first part? Right there, up to the introduction. No questions? All right. Now the introduction, I'm going to grab myself a training outline. Excuse me a second. Thank you, Paul. There's also an introduction and a motivational lead-in that I've offered up there. Okay? You can use that. You cannot use it. You can develop one of your own. That's fine. But you most definitely want to make sure when you do any type of training, that you introduce yourself like I did this morning, okay? And you heard me, so I'm not going to repeat all that, but you heard who I was, okay? A little bit about my background, you know, what makes me somebody who is able to stand up here and talk about things Americanism? Well, I'm the Americanism director, been on staff 9 years, those kind of things. So you want to try and do an introduction and perhaps maybe a motivational lead-in. Now, we're all very Legion savvy, so keep in mind your audience, like you talked about. Are there some non-Legionnaires in the audience? Is there some Legion family who may not be as familiar with how the Legion operates or its background? So keep in mind who you're talking to when you want to do your introduction and motivational lead-in. Okay? Any questions about the introduction? That's pretty straightforward. I mean, you all have done that before. That's pretty basic stuff. Activity 1. Here's where we really start to get into things. So turn to Activity 1 in your training outline, which is page 2. Here's where I really get excited about getting this module going and getting it engaged, because I really feel this Activity 1 can set the stage. Okay? Really get everybody enthused about wanting to engage in this. So I'm going to go into character and show you what I do. And I tend to follow this pretty closely because it sets the stage by showing the endurance of the Legion. It sets the stage by showing the relevance of the Legion and its programs. It emphasizes the 4 pillars. And it talks about how times have changed, but some things haven't changed through time. But not to despair, okay? So, I am going to go into character. And I'm going to be your facilitator. Here's how I handle it. So our introductions are done, okay? All right, everybody ready to get started on our brainstorming?
You bet.
All right, that's what I like to hear. Excellent. Well, first, I'd like to give you a little bit of background that'll kind of explain for you and set the stage as to why this brainstorming session is important and can be so beneficial. Okay, picture this. Who's ever watched Golden Girls? Picture this. 1971 Wall Street Journal article loudly proclaimed the demise of the American Legion. Slowly fading away, it said. It, the American Legion, fails to recruit the younger veterans. The old ones, veterans, are dying off and the young ones just don't want to join. Okay? Well, in 1971, VSOs, or Veteran Service Organizations, were working on trying to attract the younger veteran, which at that time was the Vietnam-era veteran. So they tried some different approaches to try and attract that younger veteran. They took polka music off the jukebox and put on rock and roll. Okay, somebody needs to still tell my post that, but still like their polka, but that's okay. They tried to do rock and roll. They tried giving away free drinks. They tried doing free dinners. They tried a variety of things. They tried doing radio messages. But all of these changes were done in the hopes of attracting the younger veteran. But they didn't seem to work all that great. Do you know what prevailed the most when it was said, we have nothing in common with those younger veterans? Or they said, the younger veterans just aren't interested? You know what prevailed the most? In that article, there was a beacon of hope, an excellent beacon of hope. There were some Legion posts who were successfully attracting new and younger members by, quote, offering a crowded calendar of social activities and civic projects. They found it wasn't the gimmicks, it wasn't the giveaways, it wasn't the freebies that was attracting those new and younger members. It was the fact that they were following what? 4 pillars. I heard it. Very good. It was the 4 pillars. Isn't that what a crowded calendar of activities and civic projects really is in the American Legion and the American Legion family? Correct? Was it different in the 70s? Of course it was. It was a much different era. But as John Bon Jovi, rock singers, everybody heard of John Bon Jovi? Woohoo, that's what I say. who's also a Boys State alumni. Boys State of New Jersey. How many knew that? Good, there's a few of you, excellent. As John Bon Jovi said in one of his songs, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Very good. Somebody else is a Bon Jovi fan over here. Which means even though sometimes times change, things change, there are things that can still stay constant. And in the American Legion, what's the things that stay constant for us? 4 pillars. You got it. They're just as important to us now as they were in 1971 when this article came out, as they were in 1919 in our founding. Talk about consistency and continuity, huh? 4 pillars since 1919, still standing strong today. You know, and look at us now, 45 years after that Wall Street article. Think about it. Are we gone? No. I see a lot of caps here in the room. I see a lot of Legion family. We're not gone. We haven't faded away. Now, do we have membership issues that we want to address and we need to address? Of course we do. Of course we do. We don't want to dismiss those, minimize those, or set those aside. But it's all not as hopeless as they felt it was in 1971 when they didn't think we'd be around today back then. Does everybody agree? You know, and it was kind of interesting in 2012, then National Commander Dellinger talked to an editor of a newspaper and who had indicated that the VFW and the American Legion were selling off their halls. They were closing their doors. They were going away. And Commander Dellinger noted that, you know, the American Legion wasn't founded to run halls and bars. Because what were we founded for?
4 pillars.
The 4 pillars. And he also noted, too, that there is actually more Legion posts in the United States than there are Starbucks. And it's true. And how many times have you heard the phrase, there's a Starbucks on every corner? But you know what? There's actually more American Legion posts than there are Starbucks in the United States. That really puts it in perspective for you, doesn't it? We're still just as relevant. We're still just as vital. We still can continue to rally, address our membership issues, by remaining grounded in the 4 pillars. You know, what are some things that have changed, though, for us through the years? I mean, obviously, the American Legion posts, the church and the school, back in the day, they used to be the hub of a community. Not quite so much anymore. What has changed for us through the years? Yes, sir? Social media, that is probably the biggest one. Very, very much influential. You're absolutely correct. Yes, sir?
The young age of our veterans are no longer Vietnam veterans. They are Iraq and Afghanistan veterans, but they're still analogous to the same time period.
Yep, absolutely. You got it. What else do we have besides those 2 things? What other some changes have happened through the decades?
A lot of households are dual working households. It means the husband and the wife are both working.
Absolutely. Dual income. Both parents are out working, both heads of the household. That's made a significant change. Yes, sir. Get with you in a minute.
There's something in here about being more mobile.
Yep.
But it's different from that. It's more than that. I recently went with my children on a vacation. They got themselves in their van, give the kids videos to watch. Boom, interstate highways. We went all over the Southwest, and they never saw any of it.
Because they were so focused on their technology, right?
Right.
Yep. So a couple things is mobility, technology, not just social media, but the games, the media gaming, that type of thing. I'll get with you in a second.
There's a lot more female veterans taking leadership roles.
A lot more female veterans taking leadership roles. Yes, sir.
September 11th.
September 11th. That did change an awful lot of things in this United States, did it not? You're absolutely correct. Some other things that have had an effect, what about media? We talked about social media, but what about what you hear on the news? What about what you see on TV? You know, now when I was young, I never heard of a movie having to be rated. Now there's movie ratings because it's not appropriate for certain ages. That's changed through the decades. Immigration laws are openly defied. It's okay to burn the flag because that's free speech. So much has changed and affected us being the center of a community, us being the American Legion and the American Legion Post. So obviously, we've had changes through the decades. You can't dispute that. But what's our plan? What's our recipe? How are we as the American Legion and the American Legion family going to address that? Through?
4 pillars.
You got it. Okay, now I'm going to go out of facilitator character and we can talk about that. What do you think about that? Why, thank you, thank you. Didn't you find that kind of, at least I was motivated, don't you find that kind of motivating? It kind of set the stage. It made you realize that, yes, we acknowledge the fact we have membership issues and that, yes, things have changed through the decades. And the American Legion Post isn't the hub of the community that it used to be. However, we don't need to despair. We need to try and roll with those changes, adapt with those changes. We're still just as vital because we have our 4 pillars. How many times did I emphasize the 4 pillars? So as a facilitator, if I wanted to get any point across, if nothing else, you focus on the 4 pillars, and that's what we really want to talk about in this module. Okay? Any comments, suggestions, criticisms, critiques? Yes, ma'am. Talk nice and loud.
What you say is true, and that's great. However, we need more. Oh, thank you. Like I don't really need it, but anyway. Hello. Sorry. All that you stated on the pillars, this is true, and it's great. But I feel that we need more tools because we approach these veterans, especially like the younger ones, even the Vietnam veterans who are not Legionnaires, and have all these excuses and reasons. World War I and World War II generations had wives and children and had activities, but they didn't make excuses or reasons for being a Legionnaire and participating in the 4 pillars. My problem is we don't have enough tools to use because we're having to fight against all these reasons and excuses, like single parents, like I said, the activity with the kids. It's like you're talking to a wall. And it's always the same thing. You go to the VA hospital, you advocate, you push membership, you go to the Walmart, you go everywhere. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how many people I have spoke to and given a membership application. And they're all excited, oh yeah, and you never see them. Or you'll see them the first year, and you could even offer to pay their membership, yet you don't see them the second year. We need more tools. We need more hands-on classes, tools. I don't know what else to say.
And that's why we're here today. Thank you so very much, because I'm sure there's others in the room who feel the exact same way. That's why we're here to brainstorm today. What kind of tools do others maybe have that you aren't aware of that you may be able to implement? What other kind of tools can we come up together as a group that may be something new and different and innovative? That's exactly why we're here today. So thank you so much for sharing that perspective. How'd I do? Yep. She has a valid point. She's absolutely right. We've identified, or she's identified, where some of her frustration and where she sees there's a need. But that's why we're going to be here tomorrow morning when we do this module, is to talk about that. What are some of the tools that we can share that you may find that's going to work? What can we come up with that's brand new? That type of thing. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay. So you feel, did I get you energized as a facilitator to really want to be able to engage? I think I energized, I'm sorry, what's your name? B. I think I energized B because she stood up and she shared what she thought, and that's really what this module is about. Okay? She's what? Oh, that's all right. That's all right.
I think the point that Jill's trying to make is you could take someone with a lot of energy and you just keep it positive. You don't turn it into something that's a negative that's going to stop everyone in the tracks. You keep it positive as something that, we are going to create solutions about that, and just hang on, you're going to get there. And that's going to keep that person engaged. Well, they might just simply walk out of the room if you just kind of shut them down and go, we can't think that way. So I think you did a great job of
Thank you so much.
keeping the energy going.
Nope, you're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. That was the kind of the idea. And again, I'll get with you in a second, sir. I like to do the nice, long, setting the stage type thing. I mean, I do feel kind of like a cheerleader. But not everything is sunshine and roses either, and I think I acknowledge that. So, but you don't have to do that entire long dialogue like I did. It really kind of, as a facilitator, it really also gets me going to be able to engage you all. Yes, sir?
Just as a facilitator, this and any other thing, you've got to believe what you're just facilitating.
Absolutely.
If you want to get up and give a biased or people's going to pick up on it right away, Jill, if you're sitting up there just doing something, you don't really believe in what you're trying to facilitate. And they'll see through you in a heartbeat.
Yep.
Therefore, not only are you going to lose that audience then, they're going to go back and tell everybody else, and therefore, it's going to be like a cancer. You're going to lose a lot more than you gain. if
You're
you don't-
absolutely correct. You bet. You got to believe in it, and you got to have the heart for it, which again is why maybe this module is not for everybody to facilitate, and that's fine. We're introducing it to you today, so if you feel like you're somebody who would like to facilitate this kind of a module, giving you an idea of how my approaches are. Okay? Let's turn to Learning Activity 2. That's on page 5. Learning Activity 2, I put in here in case you have a limited amount of time and you're not able to cover everything that's in this training outline, and many times that's going to happen. This will help gauge as to where maybe you want to help direct some of the conversation. Okay? So I'm going to go into character, and I'm going to show you how there's been times when I've used this to try and focus down on where we really should direct our discussions. Okay? All right, show of hands. How many of you have sent a boy stater? How many of your posts have sent a boy stater in the last 2 years? Excellent, a lot of you. Thank you so much for that. That's outstanding. How many of our posts are engaged in the School Medal Awards program? Another great number. That's excellent. How many are able to get into their classrooms to do some flag education, actually get into the door? Not quite as many, but quite a few. That's outstanding. Okay, what time of year is it? It's election year. How many of your posts have get out the vote activities going on right now? Excellent, excellent. How many of you have been engaged in Operation Comfort Warriors? Excellent. I'm so glad to hear that. That's wonderful. I asked about Boy State oratorical. How many posts conduct an oratorical contest? Okay, let's ask this. How many districts conduct an oratorical contest and your post is involved in that? Okay, outstanding, outstanding. How many of the posts or district are engaged in scouting, have chartered scouting units? Okay, not nearly as many hands, but that's excellent. Okay, now I'm going to go out of character. I've kind of gauged the room. It tells me that if there's a lot of people sponsoring Boy State or a lot of posts, that's probably not necessarily where we need to direct a lot of our focus. That's not to say we can't discuss it. If somebody has a really great Boy State idea they want to share, we're not shutting the door. But it kind of tells me that maybe I want to talk more about or focus the discussions towards scouting because I didn't see as many hands. You can also look at it on the flip side. Because I did see a lot of hands for Boy State, I'm liable to get a lot of discussion out of that and maybe some unique ideas. So maybe you do want to focus on Boy State. It's all on how you as the facilitator feel you want to direct the conversation. Okay? And when I come into these departments to do this module, you know, I've gotten an idea through discussions with the department adjutant or the department leadership as to maybe how, as a facilitator, I can best direct those discussions. Or I know through my experience that it's a really strong Boy State program and the districts and posts are really doing a great job. So again, maybe I want to focus on something else. It's all about gauging your audience, knowing who your audience is, where their strengths are, where maybe some of the areas for improvement are that you can try and help draw out. Does that make sense? Okay. Any questions on that? Again, that's totally optional. You don't have to do any of that. If after your motivational lead-in you decide you just want to jump in and start talking and facilitating, you can do that. Okay? All right, let's go to page 6, learning activity 3. And this is where, really, this is the bulk and the thrust of why we want to facilitate this type of module. This is really what it's going to be all about. So we've done the introduction, we've done the motivational lead-in, I've kind of gauged my audience, decided, okay, here's what I think as a facilitator we want to focus on. Now we're really ready to get in for me to start drawing out and facilitating the discussions back and forth and across that aisle right here, okay? This part of the lesson plan is very fluid, as we talked about. So really, you want to kind of go with the flow, you know? If we get to talking about Boys State and that hadn't been my original intention, that's okay. That's okay. You want to kind of go with the flow and keep very fluid as a facilitator, but yet, what did I say? You want to keep control and keep the expectations to the forefront too. Okay? As you see in this section, I and my staff have broken it down into the different areas of Americanism at the national level. All of our youth programs, flag education, veterans in the classroom, citizenship and naturalization. So we've broken it into segments. So what I'd like to do this afternoon is to take opportunity for you and I to get in and out of character, and we'll do a couple of those segments. So you can see how I as a facilitator do it, and you all can get a taste of what it's going to be like tomorrow morning when you're the participants when we go through a fuller-sized brainstorming session. Does that sound like a good idea? All right, thank you. Thank you for that feedback. Okay? So I'm going to get into character now. All right, so we're ready to get our discussion going. I think it would be great if we started our discussion today, if we could talk about getting into the classrooms. Again, refresh my memory, show of hands. How many of you can actually get into a classroom where you're able to help teach or assist? You actually got your foot in the door of a classroom. You know, that's pretty darn good, because that is a tough nut to crack anymore. And you know why? Do we have any educators in the room? Few educators. What is it educators always say? They have a very full curriculum. And here we are. We're well-intentioned as Legionnaires and Legion family. We come up to these educators and we say, I'm here from the Legion and I want to help you in your classroom. I know about flag education. And what's the first thing the educator's thinking? I don't have time in my curriculum. Am I right, educators? So one of the best approaches that we can do, does anybody, any of the educators want to speak up? If we want to offer assistance?
You walk in with an accessible lesson plan.
There you go. He said walk in with an accessible lesson plan. So in other words, as a Legionnaire, you're walking in to say, I don't want to add to your curriculum, but you know what? I have experience in the military. I have experience as a Legionnaire with flag education. I feel I can help you teach your curriculum. Now, of the departments in this room, do your states have mandate for flag education in the classroom? Show me your hand if you do. No state mandates for flag education in the classroom? Really? I'm sorry? Have to do the Pledge of Allegiance? That's excellent. A lot of states out there do mandate flag education, which means they have to have it in their curriculum. We as Legionnaires can walk in, if you're in a state that mandates it, and say, I know you have flag education in your curriculum, Mr. Educator. How about I come in and teach it for that 10 minutes or 15 minutes that you have it already scheduled in your lesson plan? I've offered to help him teach his curriculum, not add time or ideas or topics to his curriculum. Would that be a pretty successful approach, educators, if you were to approach that way? So great, that was a great idea. You're very correct. What are some other ideas that you all do for getting into the classroom? You all tell me you get into the classrooms an awful lot. Concisely, what is it you get to do when you go in the classroom, sir? You what? I missed that.
Well,
Roll call.
in our area up there, many of the high schools request that veterans comes in and talks to the kids in the middle schools and in the high schools, and that sometimes can be your segue into getting in there in the school and then making your capabilities known to them so that they can then use your expertise in other areas around the school.
Excellent. And you made a couple of good points. It's about the expertise and the experience that you can bring. Okay? How is it we can kind of get to know our educators? How can we develop a relationship with our educators? What's some avenues or venues? Yes, sir.
One of the things that we found most important, and the educators may agree, first thing we do is we show our presence at the school board. We go to the school board and we show our presence to help. We show our presence to ask for their help with our Veterans Day parades and activities.
Excellent.
If you don't start at the top and get permission to go into the school and the classrooms and get their guidance, then you can be talking to the wrong person at the wrong place in the wrong time, and they'll just say, they'll shut you out. But if you have the school board and then the superintendent gets on board with you, then you have free run of the schools, and they will say, hey, this class is doing this, go talk to those, and they will steer you in the right direction. So we always start with the school board.
Excellent.
Once they see the American Legion, the Legionnaires are there to help them,
Excellent.
they're willing to work with you.
So it's about developing the relationship, and it's about developing the relationship at more than just the educator level. Correct? How important is it, educators, to have your principals on board, your superintendent on board, the school board on board? Is that very helpful? Who else was some educators I saw in the room, too? Did we have some hands over here? There we go. I thought I saw one over here. Very good. Very, very good point, and you're absolutely correct. It's about being visible. It's about our brand awareness. When you go to those school board meetings, do you wear your cap? Yes. Outstanding. I was hoping that was the answer I was going to hear, because that's the right answer. Absolutely. So thank you for that. Very good point. Very good point. Any other ideas about how you can get engaged? Yes, sir.
Well, we didn't mention school awards or scholarships. They love that when you talk about money.
Yep. School awards and scholarships. He's absolutely correct. And so being able to introduce that perhaps at the school board, no matter how excited the educators are, being able to get the school board, the principal, the teachers on board with something like that is very, very good. Again, remind me, who has the School Medals Award program in their community? Excellent. So everybody look around and see these hands, because if you don't have one and you're interested in doing that, here's some of the resources that you can use to network with each other, to get some ideas as to how they use it in their posts. I thought I saw some hands over here. Yes, ma'am.
I go to the school that my mother used to teach at, so I already had
Excellent.
an in there that way.
Good for you.
And but if you have kids, like I'll go into my daughter's classroom, and the kids love it. That's another in, or your grandkids, their classroom, you can get with them. Kids in the neighborhood, get to know them.
Yep.
And then find out about their teachers and
Excellent.
try to get with them.
Excellent. Does anybody have any Teacher of the Year awards in their post or district? How great is that for building relationship with educators? Does that work? Teacher of the Year type awards, sponsored by a post or a district. And I'm seeing some very emphatic yeses, so if anybody's interested in information about that, get with the front row.
We worked with 3 different high schools, so we had to choose between 3 different high schools and one. Talk about competition. We loved it.
Excellent. And, competition is healthy, too. Competition can be healthy. How do you present those awards? Do you do it publicly or at the post, or?
We did it
Go ahead.
Post during our memorial ceremony,
Excellent.
and we brought them in and just loved it. Put it in the paper.
Excellent.
Principals invited, and the whole family.
So that post made a public event out of it. They invited the public, did a press release, did it during a ceremony. So very good. Excellent. That can develop some great relationships with educators. Yes, sir?
Another way that you can use it is communication with the ROTC, junior ROTC.
Ah, very good.
They come out to your Veterans Day events, you can get to go to their award ceremonies. A lot of times they'll have some kind of a dining out or something, award ceremony. Good opportunity to be out in front of a lot of
Very good. Well, let me share with you some of the ideas that I'm sorry, did you see a hand? Okay. Let me share with you some of the unique ideas that in my doing this, going around to different departments, that you may find kind of interesting and unique as well. For a Legion Post in New York, the local Legion Post, a local Legionnaire, collaborated with the high school to present a folded American flag at graduation to every graduating senior, okay? Regardless of whether they were going in the military or not. The Legion presented that to them as proud Americans. How cool is that? Now, not every school district can do that when you have hundreds and hundreds of graduating seniors. It doesn't work for everybody, and we talked about that. But the smaller communities, what a great gesture to be able to present an American flag to a graduating senior. I thought that was a pretty cool idea. Another post in New York collaborated with the art teacher. Now, who would have thought of this? They collaborated with the art teacher. The art teacher gave an assignment that was called Painting for Patriotism. So her art students were supposed to paint, draw what they thought what patriotism looked like to them. She gave that assignment as part of her class. Legion didn't add to the curriculum. They were helping support the curriculum. The students did that, turned it into the teacher. The teacher turned it into the post, who then had an art show and judging. And they did that in the post. They invited the public. How great was that to open the doors of your post home and get the public in while helping the local art teacher, while developing patriotism in the youth of your community? Talk about win, 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 isn't it? And then there was judging and prizes. You could do the same thing with an English teacher for creative writing. Give a creative writing assignment. You know, what does patriotism look to you? Describe patriotism. That could be an assignment with judging and all of the same thing. Yes, sir?
Well, our parish is very lucky. We actually hold a government day.
County day?
Same as the county here. It's a two-day government day, which is actually in court. Our boys and girls staters are the characters who commit a crime, which is witnessed by the whole entire court. We have over 100 students there from 5 different high schools.
Uh-huh.
So they actually have they actually have a 2-day trial with the crime it happens about 3 hours into the first day. And they go through a real trial with the judge, the whole court. They all run for office. They elect 17 different offices, and it's a great thing. Like I said, the boys and girls skaters from last session are the characters who put on the crime, and it's a great thing. We get so much coverage in the newspaper. The kids all look forward to it. They can participate 4 years in a row while they're in high school.
Fantastic.
And it's a great thing.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, we'll have to move on here in a second, so thank you for sharing that so much. That is awesome. And I know not everybody gets to have county government days, but it's fantastic that you do. And if anybody wants to talk to him about how that works in his post, his county, please do. Please do.
Jill, before we move on, I just, from a technical point of view, is we're recording this today, so for the questions to show up on the video so that people watching it later can get the most out of it, we're going to have to ask that everyone kind of wait for the microphone.
Okay,
I know
thank you,
that's
Paul.
really kind of annoying because you want to get your thought out, but at the same time, for this to work the best, not only for today, but also for the hundreds and thousands of times this can be viewed later on,
Yep.
it'll work out best if we do. Thank you.
Yep. So let me go out of character now, because this is a great time to segue. Because did you see what was happening? Now, tomorrow morning, we won't be recording this session, so we don't necessarily need the microphones, and we can just let the ideas flow. But this afternoon, that wasn't the idea. The idea was to show you how I facilitate the module and see how well it worked. Were you all not really getting into it, offering up ideas? You really were. You all were engaged. And that's exactly what this is about, which tomorrow morning, when we get into it, we're going to let that happen without interruption. But did I give you an idea of how I help kind of guide and facilitate and draw out some ideas? and then share some unique things that I've learned from around the country from different departments? Okay? That's how I facilitate it. Okay? And I've got some more ideas that we can share tomorrow, too. But one other point I did want to make when it comes to getting in the classroom, and then we're going to move on to a different segment. Think beyond just your traditional public schools or even your private schools, parochial schools. What's a big untapped resource when it comes to students? Homeschool, you got it. You got it. There's homeschool associations out there you can tap into. And I don't know if you've watched over the years, but our oratorical champions at the national level, more and more and more homeschoolers. So I offer that up to you. Okay, flag education. I know we could talk more and more about, I'm going back in character here. I know we could talk more and more about getting in the classroom, and I encourage us at the end of this module, we can network some more and talk about it. But I would like us to cover one more topic before our time runs out this afternoon and talk about flag education in the classroom, okay? And I understand from show of hands that a lot of the departments here do not have mandates for flag education in the classroom, but even though there's no state mandate, it's a great idea. And you may be able to help educators in teaching perhaps educators, social studies? Do they still have social studies, social sciences? Civics, thank you very much. That's the word I was looking for, to help teach civics.
We need to do it now more than ever.
And you're absolutely right. The observation is we need to do it now more than ever. And I think we all agree with that, absolutely. So, flag education in the classroom. You want to create an understanding of proper flag display. You want to be able to have kids develop respect and courtesy, all pretty obvious to us all. Now, I know there's some posts out there that maybe help with colors at school. Do you get to do the colors in the morning, anybody? I see some nods of head. You probably get to go on Flag Day? Good, good. Let's think beyond Flag Day, though. What else can we do to be able to get flag education in the classroom? Anybody have any ideas? Yes, sir.
When we do in Bastrop, the flag's brought up a couple times a year, okay? It gets brought up on Veterans Day. The classroom don't have to be in the class, I guess, is the point I'm going to make. It can happen at the cemetery. We do the flags for the headstones and stuff like that, and it gets talked about. We talk about the meeting at the beginning for a few minutes, and then have the prayer, and then go out. The other time is nobody ever talks about is the retirement of the flag and how it's done. That's a big thing at our post.
Very good.
And anybody drives through Bastrop on Highway 71, they see that great big flag that's over a Covert Chevrolet. We get to retire that every year.
Oh, wow.
At our retirement. All the kids get
What
part
an
in
honor.
holding the flag, including our Boy Scout troop, and all the ROTC comes over, and any kid wants to participate. There you go.
Fantastic.
That's our education.
Fantastic. So you heard him talk about flag burning. Very, very important. Dignified disposal of the flag. I said very, very, very dignified disposal by burning. How's that? Okay. Flag disposal, flag retirement. You're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. They make it a community type thing. They get the kids involved. All the kids can help bring down the colors, I understand you said. Everybody can help. And one thing I heard in Wisconsin, that they kind of go a step further when they make it a community thing like that. After the flag has been burned, the metal grommets that are left over, many times they'll collect those once they've cooled down. They'll collect those and present those to some of the flag participants in the ceremony as kind of a memory or a keepsake to remind them about respect and patriotism. Now, I thought that was kind of a unique and cool idea to think about retrieving those grommets and then making a ceremony out of that so that it has meaning and reminder. Yes, sir.
The flag retirement ceremonies are also your great time to work with the Boy Scouts because there are
Perfect.
merit badges for doing that. Our community started flag retirement ceremonies, quite quite a few years ago.
Perfect.
It got to be known, we got a call from a flag company in Houston and said, we understand that every Flag Day y'all do a flag retirement ceremonies. Is it possible you could retire flags that have been given to us? And we said, sure, bring them down. They brought an 18-wheeler down with 1,200 flags.
Watch out what you wish for.
So watch what you ask for. But our cemetery in the city got together with us. They actually have established a crypt where all the remains of the burned flags go into.
Wow.
It has our post name listed on it, and every year at the same date, on Flag Day, they advertise there will be a flag retirement ceremonies, and we have all the organizations from the fire department, police department, all of them there to participate, and now it's become a big ceremony every year.
That is wonderful. I'm going to throw that into our training outline so I can share that with other departments. That's very unique. Thank you. Okay, going to go out of character. I know the juices are flowing. That's what we're going to do in the morning. But, you know, so that's some of the ideas. You know, just see, I have to do very little, really. You know, once you all get to talking, the ideas just start bouncing around, and really the facilitation and this brainstorming takes on a life of its own. Okay, you agree? I agree too. There is a couple resources that go with this flag education module I would like to show you that I use many, many times in the interest of time. Want to get out of character and share these with you. One of them is the Red Skelton Pledge of Allegiance video. How many have seen that? Quite a few. Do you want to see it again? Yes. Okay. Okay. And then there's another one that one of my Legion College fellow alumni shared with me last year, who will remain nameless, Tall Paul. He shared with me that Robin Williams had a video out as the American flag. I thought those were two really wonderful resources and tools that you can use to incorporate. Two very diverse videos, as we'll see. Obviously, Red Skelton and Robin Williams are different ends of the spectrum when it comes to their comedic styles and approaches, but most definitely, they both have a very solid message about patriotism, respect to the flag, that type of thing. So it's about knowing your audience. Now, if you go into a school of, say, junior high schoolers, which video do you think they'd probably get the most out of if you could only show one of them? Okay, let's see who says Robin Williams. Let's see who says Red Skelton. I was thinking the same thing. Majority was thinking Robin Williams. I agree with you. I think that's a little more contemporary for them. Now, if you were going to be doing flag education, let's say we're going to go to a nursing home, which one do you think is going to make the most impact with that group? Red Skelton. What was that? John Wayne. John Wayne. So it's about knowing your audience, too, and having different resources in your tool bag. Both of those videos will accomplish the same thing, but one is probably more appealing than other to different audiences. So even though you've seen them, let's share them with each other and kind of just enjoy them again as Legionnaires, as Legion family, and as Americans, okay? Doesn't matter which one you start with. Uh-oh. We had it playing earlier. We did a test run. So while he's queuing that up, what do you think of this module? I got a thumbs up over here. I mean, I really think in the morning, I got another thumbs up. I really think in the morning when we get into it, we don't have to stop and go in and out of character. I think you're really, really going to get into it and really enjoy the brainstorming and everything that you can do. But again, the purpose of this afternoon was to show you how I facilitate it when it comes to taking on this opportunity to be able to brainstorm. Because if you didn't have somebody up here facilitating, what could happen? Chaos. It could get out of control. Nobody's going to hear anybody else. Excellent. Excellent. So you've used it. Because that's right. I did train the trainer in that one, didn't I? Did I not? In your class? Okay. Okay. Perfect. Excellent. So there's tried and true. And apparently you're comfortable facilitating. Excellent. Sounds like we got a couple facilitators in the class.
I
There
remember
we
a
go.
teacher that I had. Now, I went through the 7th grade. I went to the 7th grade. And I left home when I was 10 years old because I was hungry. And I used to, this is true. I work in the summer and I go to school in the winter. But I had this one teacher. He was the principal of the Harrison School in Vincennes, Indiana. To me, this was the greatest teacher, a real sage of my time, anyhow. He had such wisdom. And we were all reciting the Pledge of Allegiance one day. And he walked over, this little old teacher. Mr. Laswell was his name. Mr. Laswell. And he says, he says, I've been listening to you boys and girls recite the Pledge of Allegiance all semester. And it seems as though it's becoming monotonous to you. If I may I recite it and try to explain to you the meaning of each word. I, me, an individual, a committee of one, pledge, dedicate all of my worldly goods to give without self-pity, allegiance, my love and my devotion to the flag, our standard, Old Glory, a symbol of freedom. Wherever she waves, there's respect, because your loyalty has given her a dignity that shouts freedom is everybody's job. United. That means that we have all come together. States, individual communities that have united into 48 great states. 48 individual communities with pride and dignity and purpose. All divided with imaginary boundaries, yet united to a common purpose. And that's love for country. And to the republic, a state in which sovereign power is invested in representatives chosen by the people to govern. And government is the people. And it's from the people to the leaders, not from the leaders to the people, for which it stands. One nation, meaning so blessed by God, indivisible, incapable of being divided, with liberty, which is freedom, the right of power to live one's own life without threats, fear, or some sort of retaliation. And justice, the principle or qualities of dealing fairly with others. For all, which means, boys and girls, it's as much your country as it is mine. And now, boys and girls, let me hear you recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Since I was a small boy, 2 states have been added to our country, and 2 words have been added to the Pledge of Allegiance: under God. Wouldn't it be a pity if someone said that is a prayer and that would be eliminated from schools too?
That the Pledge of Allegiance is mandated in your school? I mean, you can't always have AV equipment, but I have taken the script from that and done the Pledge of Allegiance line by line. You're not adding to the curriculum, you're helping do a mandate, but you're explaining to the kids as you go what the Pledge of Allegiance is. And then at the end, I left out about the extra 2 words. I went ahead and put in under God, because that's what kids today are used to. And then when I went line by line, we all stood up, did the Pledge of Allegiance together, just like Red Skelton did. What a great way to get in the classroom, meet state mandates, educate our youth. Agreed? All right. Okay, another very diverse style, Robin Williams.
Thank you very much. Howdy. I'm the one that they're singing about. Yeah, I'm the Stars and Stripes forever. Star Spangled Banner. You can call me Old Glory, but let's just keep it simple. Just call me Flag. Oh, say, can you see? Okay. Little flag humor. Well, you probably don't recognize me. You say, who is that, Evel Knievel? No way. Yeah, you see, you can't recognize me because
I'm in my birthday suit, yes.
I'm wearing the original 13 here. Yeah. I remember Miss Betsy sitting there going, oh, this could be the start of something big. Whoa. Oh, Tom, don't be a pain. Yes. I was born June 14th, 1777. That makes me a Gemini. I'm unpredictable, crazy. Yes. I like the outdoors, and I'm the life of any party, whether it be Republican, Democrat, Independent, Socialist, anything libertarian, I'll be there. You know, I'm 204 years old. People say, Flag, how do you stay so young? Is it jogging? No. Is it tennis? No. It's waving. You know, we're talking about billowing, furling, and unfurling. Richard Simmons, eat your heart out. Yeah, but it hasn't always been easy for me, though. I had a tough puberty. Yeah, war, famine, invasion. And 1861, well, I had a little skin problem that broke out into 34 stars. But now, well, little patience, and look what we got now. Look at this. Hold on here. Ha-ha! Ha-ha! 50. Everybody's on here. Look at this. Alaska. Hawaii. Yeah, we got your Tennessee. How are you doing today? Here's Vermont. You can't get there from here. Oh, and there's California. For sure, totally. Yes, like I said before, you know, I had a tough time for a while. I've been in a lot of wars. They fired missiles and muskets at me, but you know, come the dawn's early light, I'm still there. You know what I'm talking about? And you know, I've been made into everything from designer jeans to t-shirts, and I've even been a cape for Mick Jagger. Well, all right. The rocket's red glare. Well, all right. But people haven't always been respectful to me. Sometimes it's been tough. There have been some people try and spit on me, trample me, burn me. Foreigners and occasionally some Americans too, but I don't let it get me down because I'm not a stay-at-home kind of flag. You know, I've been to Europe. I've been to both North and South Pole. I was at Iwo Jima. Recently, I've even been to the moon. One small step for man, one giant step for mankind. You see me in all sorts of different postures. When I'm like this, that means everything is okay. When I'm upside down, well, put on your Mae West and hit the deck. But when I'm like this, well, that's not my favorite position because, well, that's half-mast. I don't mean to bum you out. I didn't come here to depress you. But I got to tell you something honestly. I haven't been getting out much lately. I guess it's not very chic to put up the flag anymore, you know. Muffin and I have a flag, but we haven't found it for very long. Hey, but look at it this way. Don't look at it as saluting me. Look at it as saluting yourselves. You know, hey, I'm just a flag, a symbol. You're the people. If I may say so from here, long may you wave.
God rest his soul. How impactful is that, huh? What a message, and what a fun way to deliver the message, and what a fun way for us as Legionnaires to incorporate that in our flag education tool bag. So there's a couple videos. If you hear of any more, please let me know, because I'll add them to the training outline. So, this afternoon we've kind of gone over how I facilitate the module that we'll actually be engaged in for real tomorrow, so we can let those creative juices and discussions flow. Does anybody have any questions about how I facilitate a group when it comes to this brainstorming, getting Americanism and children and youth activities engaged in your community?